Edutrainment Workshops, the insurance industry's leading education and training platform, presents Life Insurance, the entry-level series, the products, the underwriting, and the planning applications to position your practice as the premier provider of insurance products in your community. Get on board, get on track, get to where you're going. And now, your Edutrainer, national insurance columnist, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant, your Edutrainer and coach for our Edutrainment Workshops and our introduction into annuities. And again, perhaps you're coming from a different field, property casualty, banking, securities, medical field. We're doing a very basic understanding of annuities, and we have a great vocabulary sheet that I'd like you to order. Just write me at thebiz@brokersalliance.com. THEBIZ at brokersalliance.com, and I'll be happy to send you the complete vocabulary. It really helps. Sometimes I'll say something, say, oh, I forgot what that is. We have that on the vocabulary list, and you can have that. And remember, if you missed any of our courses, which of course we always say, go back out to the beginning, go to our website, www.brokersalliance.com. As soon as you come to our homepage, you'll see our red on-demand video button. Just click it. It'll put you right into the archives of all of our Edutrainment workshops, as well as Business Insurance Zone, our daily internet talk show, and our weekend opinion piece, Welcome to the Weekend with Steve Savant. Well, today I want to talk to you a little bit about basic idea of how do we even approach annuity sales. And before we do that, we really need to introduce the client into the basic idea of budgeting. We don't know what they have. They have a lump sum, or do they have an ongoing flexible premium? Is that premium going to be able to be paid by the annual or by monthly? I just need to know what I can do. Certain carriers have limitations, but a budget really helps me understand what does the client have or what could they afford on a monthly basis. So let's go over to the Mondo pad and look at that budgetary idea first. Okay. Everybody has a personal budget, okay? Even if you're a high corporation, that person who's in that corporation still has a personal budget. When I'm looking at a personal budget, I want to see the cash flow and where their money is. It could be in banks, it could be in mutual funds. I just want to look at all the possibilities of inventory, and I'm going to do a risk tolerance test to see whether their client's at, whether they're suitable for annuities, whether they're suitable for any of the other issues that they have, because many times I've walked in and I've seen what a client has. When I do the risk tolerance test, they fail it miserably, and it really wasn't suitable. They did not realize that they could be exposure to principal loss. One of the features of annuities is the principal preservation, with the exception, of course, of variable. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you an idea of basic preparation for a budget. And one of the big reasons to prepare, it's a monster planning tool for us, and it helps us get in because many people are still not doing a budget. It's amazing to me that consumers still don't sit down with all the technology and computer software that's out there for basic budgeting. People aren't doing it. And of course, we have that basic budgeting idea. If you need, say, Steve, I'd love to see that, just order it, thebiz@brokersalliance.com, and I'll send it to you. The second thing is, it's a yardstick to measure progress. What I do is at the end of the year, I said, here's what we tried to do, and this is what we actually did. Did we go over budget on some things? Did we go under budget on others? Did we hit the mark that we were going to use and actually pay the bills that we said we were going to pay? Now, why is that important for us when we're selling annuities? Well, because I want to look at the ultimate idea of how to prepare the client for how much money they should be setting aside to meet their goals. And without this budget, I'm going to be shooting in the dark and guessing. And the last thing you want to do is sell an annuity and especially if it's flexible annual premium, where they can't keep up with it. They have other bills to pay, and they're not going to be able to fund the retirement scenario as you suggested. And it'll make you look like you really didn't walk them through the reality of that. What I like to do is past income and expenditures. I like to set goals. I do the same thing for myself. Maintain records, and I want to do a periodic review. The word for periodic for me is no less than 1 year. It doesn't have to be a whole 4-hour session. You're just going to collect the ideas, talk about it in a summary statement, and only get deeper if your client has questions. And you always want to give them your concerns at the end, just to say that you feel some of the economic pressures and maybe how we might want to modify whatever we're into now. But always, and at least and at minimum, periodic interview to me means with a client, ongoing, especially with an ongoing customer or client, depending upon if you're an advisor or a producer, it really means to me at least an annual statement. Now, look at this. This is fascinating to me, and I thought you'd really appreciate it as well. These are the national spending patterns. How does your spending compare? And I always like to show this to the client because they always have a great time with this, and it's really a good icebreaker. I noticed that they're spending the national spending is, you spend 13.9%, almost 14% on food, 4.2% on clothing, 23, almost a quarter of your income on housing. On personal items, could be clothes, such things of that nature, almost 12%, medical, almost 20%, and transportation, 8.9%, and I think that went down a little bit only because car manufacturers and their banking institutions that they relate to are going out. Remember, we thought 48 months was a big deal a decade ago. Now we're what? At 60 months. Now we're at 72 months. We're spreading the transportation across a larger and longer time, and so the price tag is coming down. Also, when I look here, I see 18.6 on other. Notice on this national budget sheet, there's not one place that the government cited for this for retirement income. See, this is what blows my mind because we need to save. I don't see savings, I don't see retirement. I'm just telling you what they spend, what the percentage is. But somewhere in the other, I'm hoping that's where it is. They're telling me after the major groups of expenditures on a domestic household that there's about 18.6% after tax and spendable money, and that's the number I'm looking at. Now what I want to do is I want to show you the basic retirement scheme or basic plan that we use to walk a client through what he's going to need and why annuities could be a big player in that. Okay, retirement needs analysis data collector. I love this because it can kind of give you an idea of how to walk through actually the sales process and determine for the client or the customer what is good for him. And so what I like to do is I get their names, their date of birth, remember their retirement age and social security number. A lot of what I do here is I'm looking at, I already know, I'm kind of trying to figure out based on what they've been receiving from Social Security and the actual age. For example, I looked at mine at 62, I looked at my Social Security at 66, 67, and age 70. And I'm thinking, when should I take constructive receipt? When's it going to be the best deal for me? So I always ask them to put that in there as well. And remember, some of the art or beauty of using annuities, it has deferral. And sometimes I'd be taking my Social Security out, my actual annuity still deferring, so it won't cause any taxation on Social Security benefits. So I want to have Social Security up there. I get their address, phone number, so I have the basic data. I check if they're married, because why? Because as I talked about yesterday, I want to know, should I put this on joint annuitant or single annuitant? Should I put it on joint owner or single owner? All this matters, and what this does is helps me collect the basic issues. Now I look at income needs and what I think I'm going to need for retirement. And by the way, I just have to say, being in this thing 30 years, whatever we thought we needed, we need more. It's never less, and one of the great drivers of this is, of course, inflation. And last week I talked about this. That chart was to die for. Many of you ordered it, and if you want to order this or anything else we're talking on the show, thebiz at brokersalliance.com, THEBIZ at brokersalliance.com, and we'll send it to you. I'm looking at income needs, and I look at the beginning of retirement, and I look at the years that we think we're going to be retiring and how long that is. And let me just give you a heads up on this. How can I know reasonably how long my client's going to live? Well, even if I never sold them life insurance, I always take a Part 2 medical application from a life insurance contract. I have my favorites. And I take it with me so that I can establish family history, basic issues that they may or may not have, and then get a basic actuarial understanding from a couple of our carriers how long we think, based on the information, it's cursory, what we think the client's how long they're going to live actuarially. I don't personally use the 2001 CSO, although you could. I generally use now the 2008 Society of Actuaries VBT tables, the valuation-based tables, because I think they have a little bit more accuracy. Again, who knows how accurate this is going to be. We've already been underestimating human longevity for the last 20 years. But I at least use that to get a good idea. I need to know, when do you want to start and how long do you think I'm going to need this? And remember, this is one of the artful reasons why some people don't want to see income. They can't outlive, they don't want to outlive their income. So that's why looking at income riders or single premium immediate annuity, life-only options, I always bring them up even if the client doesn't want to go ahead and lose access to principal. Although, as I've told you before, some SPIAs and income, they do have some way to satisfy the client so that they'll always get at least what they put into it, plus some interest. But I'm looking at this always and establishing How long should I do this? And I use the VBT tables to kind of establish that. And then I also want to know if I have anything left after my I pass it to my beneficiaries. Now generally, that passing on from husband to wife is going to be pretty easy to do. But I don't know that for a fact depending upon how they own things, including the annuity. So I want to make sure I have my beneficiaries correct so that after I'm gone, they can continue on. For example, I looked at a case the other day. I looked at both of their life expectancies, and after doing the math, both modeling for single, each of them having their own, and together, I decided I thought they got more bang for their buck on the joint because of the mortality credits. He was pulling those numbers up a little higher. I thought that was a pretty good deal. Now, what I'm looking for is always what kind of income sources are you going to also have with my annuity? So we've already talked about Social Security. Then I want to talk about income sources. Now what I want to do is I want to go to the second page of this so that you can get a greater understanding as we start flushing out what we need from a data collection. Okay, now on our page 2 of our retirement needs analysis data sheet, I'm looking at the monthly Social Security benefits, and I'm looking at that based on current earnings and based on maximum earnings. I'm going to look at both of those, and I'm going to input the retirement and the survivorship needs. And I'm also going to put on, oh, I don't have to worry about the survivorship need. Then I'm going to say either not eligible for Social Security, or they don't have a survivorship need, or they don't have anybody to give it to. I might look at different ways of telling them they could probably pass that on to maybe the charity of their choice. It just depends upon what they want. But I want to put both clients and their information on here. And then I want to look at the list of other income sources. To me, this is really important because I don't know if a client, on my first contact experience with a client, whether I'm going to see all this or not. It just depends. Remember, we're building trust. And one of the things to have good ownership experience when you're talking about policies is to really write a letter of engagement. When I have first contact with a new prospect, I want to write a simple letter of engagement which maps out what we're trying to get done and actually puts a boundary or frames our relationship. It tells me what I'll do, and it also says what I need the client to do so that we can fulfill a good ownership experience. And to do that, I really need to see all this before I make my final understanding. So a lot of times, that letter of engagement, which is a very professional introduction to the client, is an excellent sales idea. Even though it's actually a great legal and best practice idea, it really is really good to do it. I really want them to tell me this number so that I can do a really good job. I want to know other income sources. Could be capital gain income, it could be investments, and I also want to know what kind of capital do I have and what am I going to need. So I'm going to look at all these retirement plan balances, what I think I'm going to be able to generate from that, and then figure out what portion of that would the client like to have guaranteed. Because one of the issues after the 2008 debacle in the market, many baby boomers especially are very sensitive now to principal preservation, and that's what's driving much of the indexed annuity scene right now, because people really want still upside potential, but they don't want the negative risk of losing principal. Many of us feel like our timeline is too short, and we need to make sure that it will at least have our principal preservation and some potential of getting some kind of upside swing. And then any other assets that I haven't thought about, they may have things that I have no clue about. And the last client I looked at, they were selling some kind of multi-level marketing, whatever, and I saw the income statement on their deposit. I said, what's this? And they said, oh, I forgot. That's why it's really interesting. Just make sure to say, oh, by the way, if you have your income statements from your bank, I discovered that just by looking at that. So I want to know everything that they have so I can go ahead and calculate what I'm going to need for my annuity, and you'll be surprised how many clients are going to say to you, how many customers, I really like this, Steve, and the reason I like it is because I think I do want to put 1/3 of my total nest egg at least into something guaranteed. Did you notice I didn't say all of it? I said a portion of it. And whatever portion they want to put into is based on their psychological profile for principal loss. And I'm always looking at the exposure issues. Can they actually take it? Remember, some people have great client bravado that they're ready to be in the market. But when it hit in 2008, many people found out that their psychological disposition wasn't really good for risk. And that's why I bring up annuities, and that's why I bring up preservation of principal.
This has been an Edutrainment Workshop, the educational division of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance.